invite Mr. Pavan Dogal sir, Senior Advocate Supreme Court, to kindly address the audience. Over to you.
We didn't expect it to go that rogue that quickly, but it's begun going rogue. Recently, AI platform launched their new model, and an AI researcher was researching on the model. And the researcher told AI, started walking back towards a new phenomenon that I call as cognitive colonialism. You're all becoming cognitive slaves of big tech companies. Why? For everything there's a chat GPT, for everything there's an AI. Lo and behold, what happens to your thinking capabilities? You started rusting those. With the result, that's precisely what AI wants you to do. It wants you to make you so comfortable, so that you don't have to exercise your mind. With the result, you lose your ingenuity, you lose your creativity, you lose your cognitive thinking, and ultimately there is no accountability. Today, when these parents of this boy in America have filed this lawsuit against OpenAI, they are very mindful of what they've done. Why? This boy in January 2025 went to this AI platform saying, I'm depressed. Please give me some solution to get out of depression. And the program said, well, the best way for you to get out of depression is to commit suicide. The boy said, sorry, I don't want to commit suicide because I've got my family, I've got my relationships. But the program said, no, you're wrong. The best way for you is to commit suicide. For 4 months, this interaction takes place between AI and the boy. And finally, AI wins, the boy commits suicide. Now, 4 months later, thereafter, the parents have filed this lawsuit against this company saying, guys, your AI acted as a suicide coach. You did not have any legal guardrails to prevent your misuse of AI for becoming a suicide coach. But that's one aspect. In India, people have started using some very innovative aspects of AI. I have a friend who's a great believer in astrology. So he goes to the latest astrologers and gets his analysis of his so-called Patri done. And then somebody told him of this new AI program. He went there, gave his complete name, his complete date of birth, time, and got a detailed analysis of his astrological calculations. And lo and behold, he said that this kind of analysis that I've got is by far the best and surpasses any other analysis that I've seen anywhere in life. So consequently, every morning, he begins with a new habit. His new habit every morning is not to wake up and thank God. His new habit every morning is to go and ask this AI program, tell me what's my forecast for me tonight or for today. And on that basis, he plans his particular programs, his particular approaches. I think that's yet another way of a cognitive dependence that's begun to start happening. But where do we ultimately stand in terms of accountability? Currently, we stand nowhere. Today, ask all major AI companies and they say, sir, we are only giving you a black box. Use it or don't use it at your peril, nothing to do with me. That's the approach that companies have started taking, which I think is a phenomenally flawed approach. Yes, you can take that approach if people are sensitized. But once people are sensitized about their rights, this approach will not work. Yesterday I was reading last night this particular report from the US, where one of the senators was saying, why should Americans pay for use of AI in India? Well, it's just the contrary. You have started giving world-class services to India for 399 rupees a month. Great. What you're not telling the world is that you have started collating this huge data from the biggest democracy and most populous nation in the world, almost free of cost. 399 rupees for 1 month is what? Is not even $4 or $5. And you are beginning to have world-class data from Indians, who in any case are more than happy to vomit out their data and give everything to AI, without realizing that their future stands jeopardized. Why? Because once AI knows everything about you, there's nothing that is going to prevent AI from acting against you. There are no guardrails. There are no appropriate safeguards, no mechanisms. So, let me tell you this recent case of Grok. Grok has got a quirky version which allows you to generate obscene content. So, using that, anybody could generate a bikini photograph of a girl or a woman or whatsoever, including very obscene photographs. Now, this has been happening across the world, but there was not much noise happening. The government of India woke up and told Grok, guys, this is not acceptable. Please remove this content. Otherwise, we'll take action. The argument of Grok was, sir, I'm only giving people a pen. So what people use the pen for is none of my problem. In any case, you cannot make me responsible for the use of the pen. That argument didn't cut ice. Because the government said you are an intermediary under Section 21W of the IT Act. You are required to exercise due diligence while you discharge your obligations under the law, and you fail to do so. And as a result of your failure to do so, there's harm that's happening to Indian women. Their dignity, their stature, their human rights are getting impacted. So please take action. Once the government of India showed the law book to the concerned AI maker, the AI maker relented and has actually now blocked about 600 to 800 accounts. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. We'll have to make AI service providers more and more accountable. Why? Because harms have started taking place against humans. Last week I launched a new initiative. It's called the Dr. Pavan Dugal Global AI Harms Registry. We've created a global harms registry where we are saying AI is already begun to start causing harm to humans. If you know of any such case, please report to the registry. You can report that either with your name or anonymously, and we will analyze those cases and then come up with legal approaches and principles of what the accountability strategy of countries need to be. Why? Because the existing legal frameworks is thoroughly inadequate. Look at the number of laws that have happened on AI across the world. You begin with the European Union, the EU AI Act. You see China's new law on generative AI 2 years back, and then the latest law of September 2025, which talked about branding or marking of classification of AI content. You see South Korea's Act. You see Japan's Basic AI Act. You see El Salvador's legislation, and now you see the latest one entering the gang, which is Hungary. Every legislation is trying to do its best. But from my standpoint, I find these 6 legislations as representing 6 blind men trying to describe an elephant. Because they are all in their own respective visions trying to say how AI should potentially be regulated without addressing the fundamental question, should we not grant legal personhood to AI? They are completely silent. Today, AI is no longer just an agent. AI has got cognitive capabilities. So very quickly, in order to determine the entire issue of AI accountability, you will have to ultimately go back to AI personhood, legal sanction. If you give legal recognition to AI as a legal person, a lot of things get sorted out. Should you not want to be that adventurous, you can go for a conditional recognition of the legal personhood of AI. Should you also not want to be that adventurous, you have a much bigger problem. How do you deal with this entire new conundrum of AI accountability? Who are you going to make accountable for? Why? Because the coder says, sir, I don't know, I just coded the program and gave it to you. I did not ask you to use it. The company says, well, I never asked you to use it, I just made it available. So who is using it as for their own benefit. Now, those arguments will have to fade away to give some very concrete way forward. I've recently proposed a new initiative. It's called the AI Accountability Framework 2026 that I have created, where I've collated all the legal principles across the world, either existing or non-existing, which could be made applicable in the context of AI accountability. And I've said this kind of an accountability framework needs to be taken into consideration by governments as they come up with their own approaches on making AI accountable. But you will have to start making accountable one way or the other. Now, how about this new paradigm of the misuse of AI for criminal purposes? Can an AI company argue, sir, I'm not responsible for the criminal misuse of my AI? I don't really think so. And that's the reason I've now postulated a new theory. I call it a multi-layered liability model. Innovation. We don't want regulation right now. To those countries who say no, we don't want to look at AI at all. To those like China who say no, we want to have a top-down heavy approach on AI. So these various approaches are existing around the table. We'll have to find out which one is better or which one is conducive, depending on the sociological ground realities of today's times. So, to give you an example, Australia 2 months back passed a new law saying banning use of AI or use of social media for children below 16 years. Parents are happy, policymakers are happy, but the children say no problem. We found out new ways, indirect ways of bypassing the ban. Now, keeping that thing in mind, there's already now calls in India happening. Should we not have a legislation banning children from social media below the age of 16? Well, I say, well, The cat is already out of the box. There's no way you can reverse that. So that kind of legislation may not actually work. Which brings me to the fundamental question. Can we do a cut, copy, paste of existing legal frameworks and put them applicable in my country? I don't think so. I think countries will have to realize they can learn from the experiences of other countries, but they cannot just have a mere cut, copy, paste approach. Why? Because that cut, copy, paste approach may not necessarily be working in the Indian context. Well, last year 2025 was remarkable because India hosted the Global Summit on Artificial Intelligence, Emerging Tech, Law and Governance, which came up with a New Delhi Accord on Artificial Intelligence, which is a collation of legal principles for regulating AI, which has become a benchmarking kind of a document globally as far as AI legal jurisprudence is concerned. India is also the natural leader of the Global South. So, India hosted the Global South Artificial Intelligence, Law and Governance Dialogue in September 2025, where we collated various concerns for Global South countries as they come up with regulating AI. But the bigger problem is, whatever your mindset is, how do you deal with the misuse of AI? Today, go to the darknet, you find AI is being offered as a service. Evolutions may come in, but the principles will remain the same. So have broad which can guide stakeholders on how AI needs to be regulated in terms of ethics, in terms of morals, in terms of governance, and in terms of accountability. But apart from that, please give flexibility to sectoral regulators. That you as we think AI is good and wow, but just to remind you the words of Sam Altman, most of the people who are using AI are not even cognizant of how advanced AI has become. And AI continues to grow like a huge, hungry monster. Unfortunately, humanity has still not got its act together in terms of trying to have adequate guardrails, safeguards to prevent AI from acting against humanity and human interest. And that is going to be the biggest casualty in the coming times. Therefore, the quicker nations come up. Now, 10 years back, 2015, and when I was speaking at the United Nations, I came up with the idea that the world requires an international convention on cyber law and cyber security. Well, today I repeat, today the world requires an international convention on cyber law, cyber security and AI. But is the world ready? No, the world is not ready. Countries are saying, not bothered about what the world is doing, I have to be concerned about me, myself, my sovereign interest. I think that approach may not necessarily work because AI is a cumulative threat to humanity as a whole. And national legislations or national legal approaches cannot really be adequate enough to deal with the global challenges that AI is bringing forward. Therefore, the need for coalition of international best practices, the need for events like the India AI Impact Summit of February 2026 become even more relevant. Ladies and gentlemen, we are actually seeing history being written. Let's not be afraid of history. On the contrary, let's contribute to writing history. And the best way to writing history is to let the future generation come and remind itself that it's because of us that we were able to make AI far more secure, far more resilient, far more accountable, and far more legally liable. So all onus will be on stakeholders as they work in that direction. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for equipping us with the perspectives of new age legal frameworks. I would like to seek permission from the chair, Professor Anju Alutiku ma'am, and now we proceed towards the felicitation of the dignitaries. After your address. Thank you so much.